Boys and girls, I am reading on The One and Only Ivan. I am on page 281. So if you would like to get to that page, I'll go ahead and get started. 281. Nest. I'm making a nest on the ground. It isn't a true jungle nest. The leaves are inferior and the sticks are brittle. They snap when I weave them into place. The others watch, grunting their disapproval. Too small. Too flimsy. An ugly thing to see. But when I climb into that leafy cradle, it's like floating on a treetop mist. More TV. Maya wants me to go back to my glass cage. I can tell because she is tempting me toward the door with a trail of tiny marshmallows. I try to ignore her. I don't want to leave the outside. It's a cloudless day, and I found just the right spot for a nap, but I relent when she adds yogurt raisins to this trail. She knows my weaknesses all too well. In the glass cage, the TV is on. It's another nature show, jerky and unfocused. I expect to see gorillas, but none appear. I hear a shrill sound like a toy trumpet. My heart quickens. I rush close to the screen, and there she is. Ruby. She is rolling in a lovely pool of mud with two other young elephants. Another elephant approaches. She towers over Ruby. She strokes Ruby, nudges her. She makes soft noises. They stand side by side just the way Stella and Ruby used to do. Their trunks entwine. I see something new in Ruby's eyes, and I know what it is. It's joy. I watch the whole thing, and then Maya plays it again for me, and again. At last, she turns off the TV and carries it out of the cage. I put my hand to the glass. Maya looks over. Thank you, I try to say with my eyes. Thank you. It. Kenyani ambles toward me. She taps me on the shoulder and Knuckle runs away. I watch her, arms crossed over my chest. I'm careful not to make a sound. I'm not sure what we're doing. She ambles back, shoves at me, dashes past, and then I realize what's happening. We're playing. We're playing tag, and I'm it. Romance. Make eye contact. Show your form. Strut. Grunt. Throw a stick. Grunt some more. Make some moves. Romance is hard work. It looks so easy on TV. I'm not sure I will ever get the hang of it. More about romance. I wish Bob were here. I could use some advice. I try to recall all the romance movies we watched together. I remember the talking, the hugging, the face licking. I'm not very good at this, but it's fun trying. Grooming. Is there anything sweeter than the touch of another as she pulls a dead bug from your fur? Talk. Gorillas aren't chatty, like humans, prone to gossip and bad jokes. But now and again, we swap a story under the sun. One day, it's my turn. I tell my troop about Mac and Ruby and Bob and Stella and Julia and George, about my mother and father and sister. When I am done, they look away, silent. Kenyani moves closer. Her shoulder brushes mine, and we let the sun soak into our fur together. The top of the hill. I've explored every nook and cranny of this place, except for a hill at the far end where workers have been repairing a wall. They're finally gone. They've left behind fresh white brick and a mound of black dirt. While the others laze in the morning sun, I want to explore the hilltop. They've been there before, and I have not. Everything is still fresh to my eyes. I take my time going uphill, savoring the feel of grass on my knuckles, The breeze carries the shouts of children and the drowsy hum of bumblebees. Near the top of the hill is a low-limbed tree, the kind my sister would have loved. The wall is endless, clean and white, stretching far down to the habitats beyond my own. It's high and wide, carefully built to keep us in and others out. This is, after all, still a cage. It rained last night, and the pile of dirt is soft to the touch. I scoop up a handful and breathe in the loamy smell. It's a rich brown color, heavy and cool in my palm, and the wall waits like an endless blank billboard. The wall. It's a big wall, but it's a pile of dirt, and I'm a big artist. I slap handfuls of mud on the warm cement. I make a handprint. I tap my nose with a muddy finger. I make a nose print. I slide my palms up and down. The mud is thick and hard to use, but I keep moving and scooping and spreading. I don't know what I'm making, and I don't care. I make swoops and swirls and thick lines, figures and shapes, light and shadow. I'm an artist at work. When I'm done, I step back to admire my work, but it's a large canvas, and I'd like to get a better view. I go to the thick-limbed tree and grab the lowest branch. I try to swing my legs. Oomph! I land hard. I'm too big to climb, I suppose. I try again anyway, and this time I pull myself onto the first limb, gasping for breath. One more limb. Two. And I can't go any farther. Perched halfway up the tree, I see my troop, still dozing contentedly. I take in the wall, splattered and splashed with mud. Not much color, but lots of movement. I like it. It feels dreamy and wild, like something Julia might have made. From my seat in the tree, I can see beyond the wall. I see giraffes and hippos. I see deer with legs like delicate twigs. I see a bear snoozing in a hollow log. I see elephants. Safe. She's far away, belly deep in tall grass with others by her side. Ruby. She's here, Stella, I whisper. Ruby's safe, just like I promised. I call to Ruby, but the wind tugs at my words, and I know she'll never hear me. Still, Ruby pauses for a second, her ears spread wide like tiny sails. Then, with lumbering grace, she moves on through the grass. Silverback. It's a cloudy evening, chill and drizzly. Dinner is on its way, but I don't care. At night we sleep in our den, but I'm always the last to head inside. I've been inside long enough. This time of day there aren't many visitors, just a few stragglers leaning on the wall that separates us. They point, take a couple of photos, then head over to the nearby giraffes. One of the keepers is beckoning. Reluctantly, I turn to go. Out of the corner of my eye, I see someone running. I pause. It's a girl with dark hair, lugging a backpack. A man follows behind, racing to catch up. Ivan, the girl yells. Ivan! It's Julia. I scramble to the edge of the wide moat that skirts the wall. Julia and George wave to me. I dash back and forth, hooting and grunting, doing a gorilla dance of happiness. Calm down, says a voice. You're behaving like a chimp. I freeze. A tiny nut-brown, big-eared head pops out of Julia's backpack. Nice place, Bob says. Bob, I say. It's really you, in the flesh. How? Where? I can't seem to find any words. George's job at the zoo doesn't start till next month, so he and Julia made an agreement. She's walking 3 extra dogs to cover my food. And get this, they're all poodles. You said you didn't want a home, I say. Yeah, Bob says, but Julia's mom likes my company, so I figure I'm doing everybody a favor. It's a win-win. Julia pushes Bob's head back inside her backpack. You're not supposed to be here, she reminds him. Ivan looks great, doesn't he, Jules? George asks. Stronger, happier, even. Julia holds up a little photo, but it's too far away for me to see. It's Ruby, Ivan. She's with other elephants now. Because of you. I know. I want to tell her. I saw with my own eyes. We stare across the expanse that separates us. After a while, George pats Julia's arm. Time to go, Jules. Julia gives a wistful smile. Bye, Ivan. Say hello to your new family. She turns to George. Thank you, Dad. For what? For, she gestures towards me, for this. They turn to leave. The lamps that light the zoo pathways blink on, blanketing the world with yellow light. I can just make out Bob's little head sticking out of Julia's backpack. You are the one and only Ivan, he calls. I nod, then turn toward my family, my life, my home. Mighty Silverback, I whisper. Acknowledgements. Many thanks to the talented folks at HarperCollins for their expertise and enthusiasm. A special shout out to the art director extraordinaire, Amy Ryan, to the uncomparable Sarah Hoy for her lovely book design, and to copy editor Renee Safiero, the best in the biz. Most of all, I'm indebted to Ann Hoppy, my remarkable editor, who has the ear of a poet, the eye of an artist, and the patience of a preschool teacher. And those are just a few of her superpowers. Thank you, Anne, for everything. I couldn't have done this without you, really. To my parents, Roger and Suzanne, my siblings, Stu, Martha, and Lisa, my dear old, but not that old, friend Lisa Leach and Suzanne Holtman, I know how truly lucky I am to have you in my life. And to Julia, Jake, and Michael, humans have so many words, more than we truly need. Still, there are no words that can ever express how much I love you all. So in the back, there's some more things I'll read. This is the author's note about Ivan. The One and Only Ivan is a work of fiction, but the inspiration for this imagined tale lies in a true story. Ivan, a real gorilla, lived in Zoo, Atlanta, but on the way to that happy ending, he spent almost 3 decades without seeing another of his own kind. After being captured as an infant in what is now the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Ivan's twin sister died en route to the U.S. or shortly thereafter. Ivan was raised in a home until he became unmanageable. At that point, he was added to an odd collection of animals housed at a circus-themed mall in Washington state. Ivan spent 27 years of his life alone in the cage. Over time, as an understanding of primate needs and behavior grew, public discomfort with Ivan's lonely state grew as well, particularly after he was featured in a National Geographic special titled The Urban Gorilla. A public outcry followed, including heartfelt letters from children. When the mall where Ivan lived went bankrupt, he was placed on a permanent loan to Zoo Atlanta, which houses the largest group of captive western lowland gorillas in the nation. Ivan became a beloved celebrity at Zoo Atlanta, where he lived contentedly with Kenyani and other gorillas. He was known for his paintings, which were often signed with his thumbprint. Ivan and Kenyani were real gorillas, and so, by the way, was Jumbo, whose story Stella tells to Ivan and Bob. But all other characters and situations in this novel are entirely the product of my imagination. When I started to write about the grim facts of Ivan's solitary existence, a new tale slowly began to take shape. At least on the page, where anything is possible, I wanted to give Ivan, even while captive behind the walls of his tiny cage, a voice of his own and a story to tell. I wanted to give him someone to protect and the chance to be the mighty silverback that he was always meant to be. The Newbery Medal Acceptance Speech. Catherine Applegate delivered her Newbery Medal acceptance speech for the one and only Ivan at the annual conference of the American Library Association in Chicago on June 30th, 2013. If I had $1 for every person who's come up to me this year and said, I really love the one and only Ivan, but I've always despised talking animal books, I could buy, well, maybe I used Prius anyway. I loved animal books as a child, and if the animals talked to each other or to humans, so much the better. One of the first books I remember my dad reading to me was the story of Dr. Dolittle. When my second grade teacher read Charlotte's Web to my class, I was enchanted and heartbroken in equal measure. That so many people were allergic to animal fantasies was news to me. Interestingly, those people were always, without exception, adults. Children were willing to give me the benefit of the doubt. Where adults see problems, children see potential. First person gorilla? Sure, why not? You have to write the book that wants to be written, said Madeline Lingle. And if the book will be too difficult for grown-ups, then you write it for children. It's easy for children to embrace animal characters, I think, because they're kindred spirits, wild-hearted and possessed of powers others don't fully appreciate, be it the hidden talons of the domesticated cat or the hidden imagination of the domesticated child. Both live in a world controlled by tall, erratically behaving adults who subscribe to arcane and random rules. At its heart, of course, an animal fantasy is as much about humans as it is about animals, about the things we most fear and the things we most love, about pain and sadness, but also about redemption and hope. Stories about animals don't have to be sad, but many are, perhaps because they are so often about powerlessness. And certainly, the one and only Ivan has tragic moments. It was, after all, inspired by a dark and true story. The real Ivan was shipped as a baby to a shopping mall in Tacoma, Washington, where he served as a prop and punchline for 27 years. I've talked to countless people who visited Ivan as children, and to a person they all remembered the pain they felt watching this lonely, magnificent animal in his desolate cage, seemingly beyond help. After the one and only Ivan was published, a bookstore contacted me about a pending elementary school visit. One of the parents was worried about using Ivan. She hadn't read it. They never have, as librarians know better than anyone. But she gathered that it was sad and it might make some of the children cry. The bookstore, to its credit, reassured her thusly, absolutely, it will make them cry. And oh, by the way, that's a good thing. We live in a world where children are bullied into despair and even suicide, where armed guards in a school hallway are considered desirable, where libraries are padlocked because of budget cuts, where breakfast and backpacks for too many children are unaffordable luxuries. Children know all about sadness. We can't hide it from them. We can only teach them how to cope with it, its inevitability, and to harness their imaginations in the search for joy and wonder. Nothing, nothing in the world can do that better than a book. In Ivan's story, both real and fictional, there is hope. During his years in the mall, the world changed, as it has a way of doing, and our understanding of the needs of animals in captivity grew. Eventually, Ivan was released to Zoo Atlanta, where he lived out his days. It wasn't the perfect answer. It was still, after all, a world with walls. But Ivan was surrounded by people who loved him, and grass, and trees, and most of all, other gorillas. So, no, not a perfect ending, but things aren't black and white in the world, and they shouldn't be in a children's novel either. What makes children, at the end of the day, better people than the rest of us is that despite everything, they're buoyant, unrepentant optimists. I've always thought that the best part of being a writer is getting fan letters, although I tend to feel a little guilty when I receive them. The letters are so sweet and effusive, so humbling, and the truth is, we writers are a sketchy bunch. We are, after all, novel gazing, whiny, full grown adults who sit around in our sweatpants all day talking to imaginary friends. I particularly treasure this fan letter, which I shall read to you in its entirety. Dear K.A. Applegate, it's me again, the huge fan. I wanted to know if you can send me some of your books and the DVD seasons of Animorphs, if that's not too much to ask, because I don't want to be a bother to you. If anything, you're my best friend in the whole wide world, and I never had anyone with your quality and imagination. I mean, I have a big imagination too, just not that huge to imagine people turning into animals and alien slugs trying to rule the earth. You, my friend, have potential from your biggest fan. You, my friend, have potential. I've been lucky enough to hear that many times in my own life when I've needed most to hear it. How do you say thank you for something like that? Humans have too many words, as Ivan says, and yet there don't seem to be enough. Still, I will try. Thank you. To my dad for his quiet courage and sly wit, and for tolerating a chaotic menagerie of pets, including an unremitting stream of baby gerbils. To my mom for showing me that it really isn't ever too late to be what you might have been when she went to art school after her four children were grown and permanently rechristened the ironing room, her art room. To my sisters Martha and Lisa and my brother Stu and my dear friends Lisa and Suzanne for their love, their patience, and their laughter. To John Shoemaker and Colby Sharp and the Nerdy Book Club and all the many librarians and teachers who've enriched my life and the lives of their students. To my agent, Alina Mechelin, and my lawyer, Steve Shepard, for making even contracts and triplicate entertaining. To the HarperCollins crew for their skill and support, especially Susan Katz, Kate Jackson, and Catherine Teagan. To Amy Ryan, Sarah Hoy, Renee Vera Caffiero, and Lucille Schneider for their amazing attention to every last detail. And to Laurel Simons, Jenny Sheridan, Kathy Faber, Suzanne Doglin, Lauren Flower, and Patty Rosati, and her whole wonderful team for all the TLC. To Ivan's brilliant illustrator, Patricia Castileo, for bringing Ivan and his friends to life with such humor and grace. To my dear friend and editor, Ann Hoppy, thank you for making Ivan the book it was meant to be. Ann loves words passionately. Ann loves books purely. Ivan would not be Ivan without her. There are so many wonderful writers in the world. I wish they could all have the chance to work with Ann Hoppy. She'd be very tired, granted, but they'd be better writers and better people because of it. To my amazing children, thank you for reminding me what really matters and keeping me humble. Julia, who's always ready with a comforting hug and the world's best sandwich, said when I announced I was finally done with Ivan, "Oh, so you mean we exist again?" Jake, who has a passion for justice and an ear for truth, recently texted his sister when she asked me a question about her English homework. "Sorry, Julia. Mom's only written poetic stuff. That is useless in the real world." To my husband, Michael Grant, thank you for everything. 34 years ago, Michael knocked on my door to borrow a can opener, even though he already had one. He told me back then we could approach our lives as a comedy or a tragedy. I'm glad we chose comedy. I've learned so much about writing from Michael and even more about life. We've shared a long and crazy and wonderful history, and now we share this award. Although, apparently, we still don't share litter box duty. To Stephen Engelfred, the 2013 Newbery Committee, thank you for your dedication this past year for heroically tolerating the bookshelves, the closets, and no doubt the bathtubs full of books to be read, the long meetings, the reading till the wee hours. That you love books wholeheartedly is quite evident. What may not be quite so evident is that most of you could probably use some new bookshelves. And finally, to all of you who've come here tonight to celebrate children's books, every time you find the necessary book for a child, a book about sadness overcome, unfairness battled, hearts mended, you perform the best kind of magic. It doesn't matter if it's about a gorilla or a nuclear physicist, a puppeteer, a motherless child, or a clueless fish. If it's the right book, you've allowed a child to make a leap out of her own life with all its limitations and fear. And yes, sometimes sadness, into another to imagine new possibilities for herself and for her world. Every time you book talk a new title, every time you wander the stacks trying to find that elusive, well thumbed series paperback, every time you give just the right book to just the right child, you're saying, "You, my friend, have potential." That is a gift. That is a miracle. And that is what you do, each of you, every single day. For a thank you that momentous, there are truly no words. Ivan's signature. Dear reader, every summer my friend Don and I rely on students, teachers, librarians, and authors from around the world to help us pick a character from a children's book to take on a literary road trip. During the 2012 road trip, we traveled over 4,000 miles with a stuffed gorilla who wore a personalized t-shirt that author Catherine Applegate had specially made and a copy of the one and only Ivan. If I asked stuffed animal Ivan to write about the most memorable afternoon during our journey, I know he would waste few words describing when the real Ivan stood 5 feet from us and signed me a copy of the one and only Ivan. My eyes fill with tears just thinking about that memorable afternoon. I can still see Ivan's loving caretaker, Jody, feeding him blueberries. I hear her say, "Ivan, are you ready to sign your book?" She gently guides his finger into a can of green paint. He presses down inside the book, leaving his distinguished mark. After he signs the book, he does not let us out of his sight. It looks as though the deepest, wisest thoughts are running through his head. I sent Jody the following email message on January 28, 2013, the day the one and only Ivan won the Newbery Medal. Dear Jody, I hope the one and only Ivan wins the Newbery Medal is the last thing you said to me when I met you and Ivan. It happened. It really happened. It fills my heart with joy to know kids will always know about Ivan, the mighty silverback, who touched your heart and mine. Thank you for taking care of Ivan for so many years. Best, John. I'm so happy to be able to share Ivan's signature with you. John Shoemaker, the one and only Ivan. Thank you for being a part of this series with us at Mallinson. We hope you have enjoyed it.